everybody. Welcome to Tacky Tablecloths. Today we got a very special episode coming back to a very important topic to us, which is Xenos is a cult. Today I'm here with Bryn Casson.
Bryn.
Mr. Bryn. I'm obviously Justin. We have a new guest today. This is...
I'm Mark Kennedy. Guy who runs the site.
Mark Kennedy, the leader of xenosisaccult.org?
.com.
.com
was cheaper.
No, yeah, the
That
.com.
makes sense.
And you don't necessarily need to show all that stuff. And we're also here with
Yeah, I'm here as well, Alex.
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess we should just jump right into it. Mark?
Thanks for being here, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
We're excited to learn more about what you've been doing.
Yeah, everything.
Everything.
Yeah, everything, really, yeah, everything.
So I'm going to give my brief background so people know who I am who are watching this. We're in Xenos, and then I'm just going to start for the people who aren't in the group, describing how the group functions. So I was invited out in 8th grade. Most people don't go to the high school group until they're freshmen, but my sister invited me out. So I was in Xenos from 8th grade to 10th grade when I left. I was pretty much immediately in the worker group, and you'll learn what that is later. So I had a unique access to seeing how the group functions and seeing things that were very suspicious from the start from an outside perspective. I was reading a leadership document that they have on the website. They're always like, read through our website documents, there's nothing weird, but you read through the documents and you find some kind of axioms that really are unhealthy, and they indicate a lot of subversive control. And like one of the things on the document I was reading was talking about, like, don't bring out non-Christians to the worker group because they might not understand it. And the worker group has something that happens at the end of every home church. So Xenos is divided into like a triangle in terms of hierarchy. So you have the home churches at the bottom, and then you have the group leaders who lead the home churches, and then you have deacons above that, and there's kind of a bunch of staff positions underneath all of that. And then you have the main pastors like Dennis McCallum, Scott Risley, Gary DeLashmuth, I don't know what's his last name. You have those elders. Now, they all say that it's like a hybrid kind of pastoral thing, but in my opinion, and from what I've seen, Dennis is the main guy. Everybody else is kind of just a pawn in what he does. So going right back down to the bottom of the pyramid, you have the high school groups, which you were invited out to, and the college groups. They basically function the same way, but the high school groups they're spread around Columbus, Ohio, and they meet at people's houses. So they'll kind of go to their parents, like, we want to host a Bible study at your house, and the parents naturally say yes because they assume, oh, it's a Bible study. Like, great.
You can't be up to no good.
Yeah, what's the worst thing that can happen?
What's the worst thing happen at a Bible study?
Yeah, So, and then the college group is basically the same way, but they own the houses, and they have a level of plausible deniability with, oh, well, it's not Xenos people, but it's people that they know, kind of a thing. So these landlords will own the houses, and then they'll have the college groups there. So the first thing you notice when you're invited out is that everybody's very friendly, everybody's very nice. It's like, it seems like a kind of casual environment. It's not obvious, but the goal for what's happening is before you came here, they had a meeting, and they have your name on a list, and they decide who's going to talk to you. They decide who's going to give you a ride home to talk to you, generally one of the college leaders, because most kids are high schoolers. They talk about, what does this person believe? Like, what do we know about them? Like, who are they dating? And generally what happens is that it's presented as a prayer group so we can talk and pray about these people. But the reality, it's like, so-and-so did this. I know this about so-and-so. And, they're dating, who. And it's like, it generally turns into an environment where a bunch of high schoolers supported by college students kind of gossip on each other. And it gets pretty bad.
So they're constantly keeping tabs on people to make sure that they're able to control them and
it's a big investigation.
Yeah. Right. They'll and it's under the ruse of, we care about their spiritual development.
Right.
Which arguably is a good thing, but you realize that these people aren't equipped to lead, and even though they take leadership training classes, they're still not in the point where they should be leading high schoolers. And so they'll pull out this whiteboard and they'll write your name on it, and then and they won't tell you about the worker group. Like they'll be like, it's always kind of funny when you bring it up. Like when I tell it to outsiders, they're like, what? It's like a worker group. Like the group meets before and after. So when the college student drives you home, if you're a high schooler, they will go back to the parents' house or the host house, and then they'll have a meeting about, did someone accept Christ? Did someone, what happened? But usually it's like, so-and-so told me this. She got drunk at a party. So-and-so told me he smoked weed. And it's like, it's not like, oh, this is going to help us all learn to have a discussion about how we can advance this person's spirituality. It's like...
It's more to shame them.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's just like, it's just good, it's juicy gossip.
Right.
That happens a lot. And so they try to leverage that too. It's like, this person doesn't seem sure about what they believe. And so they force you kind of to get into the group. But the thing about the group is what's so dangerous about it. It's a lot of fun. So they hold in the high school groups and the college. So like the college group will hold like a wine and cheese night. They'll do drinking games without alcohol, which is, what's the point? Like they'll do chocolate flip cup and stuff like that. They'll have Super Bowl parties. They'll have football parties.
We used to do Mountain Dew pong in my basement back in the day.
Right.
Mountain Dew pong, that's a good time, man.
Yeah, as long as it's not a cult.
Pumped up Mountain Dew!
Yeah, so what happens with the high school groups is they do the same thing. So they'll do games that I think are a lot of fun. Games like Fugitive, and you'll be running around, Hilliard or wherever you're from. Mm-hmm. Or we'll do games like, what's the other good one? They'll do like paint fights, and they'll do like other stuff, chalk and moke drinking games again. Stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
that sounds dangerous.
Yeah. And what happens is it's a lot of fun. It's a social group. A lot of people invited out are kind of on fringe groups, or they'll have kind of like a soccer player invites you out, or someone cool in school invites you out. And what happens is that you start enjoying it. You're like, oh, this is fun. And there's a Bible study. You're like, what's the harm in going to a Bible study and having fun? And then you realize, in general, you're like, you're usually 14 to 16 when you're very vulnerable. You look up to the college students because they're older. And that's plain psychological grounds for manipulation, because these are 14-year-old kids, and a 24-year-old college kid is like the coolest thing in the world. Mm-hmm. And there's like biological reasons for this. They trust these people, and the parents trust them. Everybody trusts them, but it's a ruse. So what will happen is someone will sit down with you, and you'll be like, so what do you think about the teaching? Everybody has heard that across the board. Like, everybody in Xenos who's gone to Xenos,
I can attest to that.
That's a trained question that they will tell people. So after the teaching's over, ask someone, what do you think about the teaching? And this is where it kind of falls into love bombing. Like, if you want to really engage with somebody, this is just a good conversational trick. Is just ask them a lot of questions. People like talking about themselves. They want to, like, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts on the present? You can ask them anything, and they will tell you. They'll tell you that. Same thing with Xenos is that all of a sudden you're some weird 15-year-old kid. You're invited out. Everybody's asking you your spiritual beliefs, which are real questions. Like, they're a lot more engaging conversation that you're probably used to. Then you start to notice everybody's nice to you. Mm-hmm. And also you notice that there's girls there, or there's guys. A lot of these people, they're antisocial. They can't interact with females normally. And so they go out there, and they're like, oh, wow, this is a lot of fun. And probably in your experience, too, you're like, oh, this is a lot of fun. Discipleship comes in, or discipler. And then they start to say, oh, you should, consider being discipled. And then they'll say, why don't you come over before the teaching for an hour? And you accept Christ with them, and you go out for fun. This is you and this college student. So you're 15 and they're 24. And so you start doing fun activities. You go out and you hike around. We're going to go exploring. We're going to go geocaching. Mm-hmm. You start studying the Bible with them, and you start developing a relationship. And then you'll ask them questions, too. It's like, where should I go to school? And they'll lie to you. They will say, you can go anywhere. They will tell you that. Mm-hmm. But then, when it gets down to the wire...
Right. The true end game is to keep you there, keep you where they can keep tabs on you.
Did we talk about that in the last episode?
Yeah, and I mean, Otterbein's not even very far from Columbus State, Ohio State, anything like that, but it was still...
Too far.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
If you're not located on campus, then you can't necessarily drop anything anytime and go...
True. Exactly. Yeah, because I was still
where you need to be.
So do they don't have outreach at like the other colleges, like in the city, like Otterbein or
nothing
like
at
Franklin
or Franklin
Capital?
Or Capital.
I mean, they reach out to Capital and these universities, but their main ministry houses, which are basically outposts, OSU, C-State.
And the thing about that is a lot of those people who are going to those smaller colleges might be doing that because they're getting ready to transition over to Ohio State degree. In my experience as well, because I've done the same thing.
Yeah. So the goal of the group is to get you further into the group, kind of like similar to Scientology and how they use the auditing. You sign a lot of legal work in Scientology. You'll sign, you'll give them lots of personal information, but this is more of an emotional investment.
Yeah.
And this is a very serious thing because to these kids, it's like, because by the time, from freshman to senior, if you go to every single Xenos event you're invited out to, that'd be 3,000 hours. Mm-hmm. That's 1.5 work years of time in high school. That's 4 huge 1 week long summer camps. That's 8 super retreats. That's 208 home churches. That's 208 central teachings. That's hundreds of hours. And there's more on that too. Like more people will come out. Like more time will be spent because your friends will invite you out. That's all you have is your friends in the group. So over time, you definitely become so entrenched in the group that you don't know anything else. And this is just high school. Your best friend's a college student. They start to say things like, "Oh, you can't trust your parents," or "Your parents aren't healthy," or "Your parents are out to get you," which is that's gaslighting. It's telling you like you can't trust them. This is God's plan. And that's a lot of their defense. Is they'll be like, "You're not arguing with me. You're arguing with God. You're arguing with the highest moral authority possible." And that's a hard thing to argue against because it's something that you believe because you've been in the group so long that you don't know how to argue against that. And the next thing you know, it's like, well, yeah, I should go to Ohio State. Ohio State's a great college. It is a great college.
There's lots of opportunity there for me.
Exactly. But you may not even look at other colleges. You may not even consider, why do I have to go to Ohio State? Why can't I go out of state? And then you kind of think about it some more, and then you've already signed in on a lease on a ministry house. The moment you've graduated high school, you're already committed to living in a ministry house, the same ministry house that your discipler lives in. And then you're starting to take leadership training classes, which are $150 a pop, or $75, and you take these, and these are, like I told you, they're Christian judo moves, and they teach you how to argue against people and, debate and pull them into the group further. And then you're in the ministry house, you're under control of a ministry house leader who's generally somewhat neurotic, they're generally unstable.
Yes.
They're not sane people, and that's not a healthy environment to be in. And you'll become more and more depressed, and you'll become more and more vulnerable to manipulation. You'll be broke. You'll be constantly sleep deprived. That's a sign of cult activity. People say, well, we don't use sleep deprivation at Xenos. Like, they don't do it in a traditional, obvious sense where they keep the people up for 36 hours.
Yeah.
They do it by, it's like a choice. It's like you do all your Xenos activity, or you pass you pass your college, you get your college degree. Like, which one do you want?
Yeah.
So you drag out your college degree for 6 years. Your grades suffer. You don't get enough sleep because the church has they have such an insane time commitment, and it's not obvious. They're not stupid. They know that they have to do things subtly, so they can't obviously make it so apparent that anybody can see it. They do it in a way that it's like just this subtle kind of, look, you need to go up to your leadership training classes. You need to donate to the financial support team. God's calling you to the point where there's such this weird expectation of the group. I had a friend who, he was broke. He literally was dumpster diving, and his discipler was telling him, you need to donate more. You need to donate. This will kind of alleviate your issue. That is ridiculous. And that happens. And if
Were they asking for up and above 10%?
They usually ask for 5%, but they generally, if you're not donating, they'll get on you. And they generally ask for over 5%. So it could be up to 10%. Because you can see on their website, they have a financial report, and then they say that they have an amount budgeted, and then usually the amount given is always over the amount budgeted. Because it's the whole, you need to donate more. You need to, that's just how it is. There's an environment. Xenos people prove...
My dad was a pastor at a church for several years, and part of the reason that they want those numbers published is so that people feel a need that what they're giving to is actually causing things to grow.
Yeah.
So when those numbers are published, it makes people think that, we're above budget. I need to continue to give so we can meet our goals as a church. Just a little...
An interesting thing about that, too, is that there's this really interesting way this plays out, is that they're all broke.
Yeah.
And college is usually a hard time financially.
Yeah.
Already, yeah.
Added on with, you basically have an additional...
$40,000 in loans from the government.
Exactly. And it's the next thing you have is a degree in Xenos. It's you have to get 2 degrees at once, essentially. Basically another workload. You're cramped in a house, and And then the next thing you know, you're going out to a beach trip where they, encourage members to have a date night. It's the only time of the year that they're allowed to wear swim. Like the only time of the year they're allowed to go on each other's houses and. What was the other one? The only time they're allowed to wear anything revealing. Because if you're a girl and it's like 90 degrees out, and you wear something revealing, you're going to get attacked for that, even though it's you're burning to death essentially.
Yeah.
But at the beach trip, you can pretty much wear whatever you want. And then all of a sudden they have a date night where and they do this even at the summer camps sometimes. We had a date night at our summer camp, but it wasn't as obvious. Then they kind of encourage date members in the group. And it's like, so you have all this sexual tension. The only way to get out of the ministry house is to get married too.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of guys do.
So that's sort of their plan to keep everyone pretty sheltered for most of their time in Xenos, and then you have this big trip where they try and get everyone to couple up.
Yeah.
And so you got a bunch of young hormonal kids who are getting pretty sheltered being in Xenos, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, let loose, and that's how they get them even more. What's the word I'm looking for?
Invested into the group.
Invested in the group, invested in each other. They're not going to go outside of the group looking for dates or relationships.
Christ, you love Christ. There's no reason why you guys can't love Christ together.
Yeah.
This is a good thing. You guys both have common goals and common values, and when two people get put together with common goals, common values, have had issues in the past, have now had this healing through this organization, they suddenly feel they're so powerful together that why not?
Yeah, and then they shun people for having relationships outside of the group. Some ministry houses have date night quotas, so you only can go on a date night every 2 weeks, or every twice a week's the limit, or 3 times a week, and your discipler or your group leader, or maybe both, will come at you if you try to date people who are outside the group, if you go on too many dates, if they suspect that you're having sex. Like, they will assume the stupidest things, because it's like, oh, you were in a room together alone. It's like, well, maybe they were kissing. Like, it's not just like any...
They always just assume the worst.
Yeah,
the quote-unquote worst.
There's a huge sexual inquisition going on there. And whenever we get a chance to talk to our next guest, we're going to go into a lot of that and hear a lot more about that.
Yeah.
Because, at least over on the west side, some things can be rather invasive and very lewd and questionable.
Yeah, they're very sexually repressive. They admit this themselves. They have an issue with pornography. They have an issue with... this is why and then they'll say, well, if you have an issue with pornography, you need to use... They don't use Covenant Eyes anymore, which is a program some Christians may be familiar with. They use a program... I found this out from someone sent me a leadership email when I was doing all the poster things. They use a program called Accountability to You. And that's like, okay, it's kind of cheesy sounding name, but what does it do? I looked through it last night. I didn't realize that they upgraded to this. This has GPS tracking. This can read... Someone told me this. They were emailing me. They're like, I can't text you over Instagram, DM me over Instagram. I need to email you because the tracking software. So they can find out where people are. They can find out who they're talking to.
What they're saying.
And they can put objectionable words. So they could maybe put terms that are pornographic. They also could put words like cult or xenosisaccult.com. So they could add that. And then as soon as you Google that, it's emailed to the discipler. And then you go...
And then they're keeping tabs on you, and then they're
There's
going to...
a review, they have a meeting with somebody, with an elder, and then they decide together, collectively, how they're going to assess that. And then they call you into a room, and you basically get told everything that you've ever done wrong in your whole life.
Yeah. Sometimes they will publicly shame you, so they'll bring out the entire church, even if they're not workers, and they'll tell everybody what you did. There's one event that happened in my home church. There was this individual where he didn't do anything wrong because I knew him. He's just being an idiot. And what happened was that instead of being like, hey, just stop doing that kind of a thing, which is probably just to say to a high schooler when he's not really doing something wrong, they took the entire church. Before he got there, they decided to kick him out. It was supposed to be some trial. It didn't matter what he said.
Yeah.
He showed up.
He was already out? They'd already made that decision?
Yes, they already made the decision. They pretended. It's the lying thing. They'll lie to you. It's like, oh, you can go to any college you want. They're lying.
They wanted to humiliate him, but more for the reason that other people see it, so they don't...
They make an example.
Well, and also you present it in that trial sense, so that it at least seems like there's this fair
was a chance,
part.
Yeah.
But they're just setting up a kangaroo court to just,
Yes,
kangaroo
court. are.
Yeah, to expose the bad things that someone has been doing, when in reality they're just shaming them.
Yeah,
and turning people against them.
Yeah, and again,
because they want to suppress
control
people.
goes right into that, where you're thinking you have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking that the things that this person's saying has the potential to, free them, keep them in the group.
Mm-hmm.
There's no
That
chance.
rarely happens unless they completely break down mentally. But this is disgusting.
Yeah, they
'Cause
have
they're
to
high
make
schoolers.
major sacrifices in
Yeah.
order to stay in.
These are college-age students manipulating freshmen in high school. Like, there's something ethically wrong about this.
And that's the most vulnerable time in your life is
Yeah.
during adolescence. Like people are going through puberty. They're
There's depression.
they're
there's
yeah
outside
yeah
influence,
they're
there's-
learning about their lives and what they're going to do, and they're just easily manipulated into, and it's really sad.
That's why sexual predators target children.
Right.
It's also a misconception that some people have about psychopaths and sociopaths. They think they're all in the corporate world. Yes, there are some there, but the business world's just very harsh. That's the hard truth. It's a hard business. Pun intended, I guess. But the thing with sociopaths and psychopaths is they need to be on fringe groups. And there's a lot of personalities in Xenos that are very disturbing. And I'm not going to diagnose them right now, but they truly are weird people. They do a lot of really very unethical things. And the nice thing about that is the home groups change every 6 to 24 months. And so...
Yeah, they continually break them up.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the
They
thing
get to be too close or too big, and they just... Okay, you're going here, you're doing this, you're doing this.
And they present it as church growth, like, our group split. But the truth is that just allows the bad apples, they give them new targets. Because the thing about psychopaths is, like, if I screw you guys over, you're not going to work with me anymore. Because you'll be like, what the hell's up with that guy?
Mm-hmm.
But if I screw you guys over and leave, then find a new group, then I can do the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens in Xenos. You have a college-age student who has clear mental issues or a clear personality issue.
Yeah.
They'll go into a high school group. They'll repel. Like, one instance I had... Actually, I want to finish my story. So, like, for this instance, with the kid having this trial, I was sitting there, and then they started to lay out what he was doing wrong. Then they started saying things that I'd never heard before. I've been hanging out with this guy for like 3 weeks pretty intensely before that. And what happened was I realized they were sharing confidential information. Like, they were sharing, like, a conversation that if me and you had, or one of us had, or me and someone watching this had, they'd go, you would have no business sharing that. Mm-hmm. And I realized that they were just pouring out some of the worst things that has happened to this guy, things that you would never expect to be said in front of 40 people.
Mm-hmm.
Then they kicked him out.
Sorry to interrupt again, but was that shared by the discipler directly to them? Or was that shared by one of those elders that the discipler then would have told, and then it was dispersed?
It was the two group leaders. So it was one of his one person who's supposed to disciple him, but he wasn't really a discipler, and another leader in the group. So it was this high school home church leader. The elders, they did a lot of dumb shit back in like the 1980s, and I'm not... I know that was vulgar, but it's true. Like, you look at the older stories, those guys, clearly, there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
Like, and they know it, and they're trying to be like, oh, it's outdated. It's like, that doesn't change, that was unethical.
Yeah.
Well, because what had happened to me was that I had told somebody, and then somebody else had came and talked to me about it. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. So they were going around.
I didn't tell you that.
Exactly.
And first, you didn't even hear it right from this other person.
Yeah.
And two, excuse my French, fuck off.
Well, really, though, because they're like, you say anything, and it's like, why does everybody need to know? Mm-hmm. They have this amazing ability to take any crisis and turn it into absolute animal hell, because they will take anything, and they'll tell everybody. Like, I've heard people people DM me, and like, they told everybody about this horrible instance in my life. Everybody. They don't tell people because they care. They tell it because it's a good piece of story.
Yeah.
It's juicy gossip. Here's a great example, and I caught him multiple times. I know how the group works, which is why I've caused such a disruption in the group.
Mm-hmm.
One member was recently DMing me very angrily. There's a lot of anger in the group, a lot of rage. And
there's a lot of confusion. A lot of people don't really know what's going on, and they're clinging to this one little thing and following it. And as soon as one thing gets split in there, like, it's either outrage or disgust and leave.
It's their identity. That's why they get so upset. They don't have an individualistic, and they don't like individualism. They don't like that. They've said that in their teachings. They don't like the idea of an American by himself who stands as himself. They don't support that. So what happened with... Actually, I just remember this. So they'll say that, like, if you go up to a high school leader or college leader and you say, hey, can I talk to you about something? like tell you something personal, and you can say it, you can tell them whatever. It's maybe something. And generally, the things that people tell are like sexual abuse or psychological abuse by parents, or doubts, anxiety, concerns about what's the fundamental nature of the universe. What's the point of this? What am I doing? I don't trust anybody. I feel alone. And in that moment, they will tell you, this is a confidential. Yeah, sure. Or even conversations that any social nuance would dictate that don't tell anybody. It's like when someone comes up to you and it's like, hey, I was abused for a couple of years with my parents. What kind of person would share that to 100 people?
Yeah.
Then they have a document on their website called, and it basically talks about gossip versus conferral. Gossip to them is basically slander, and don't gossip.
Mm-hmm.
Conferral is telling other people in the church because it's going to help this person.
Right. And they've twisted it into their minds to make it seem like they're doing the right thing.
And also I've seen Dennis say this online, is they don't really view, I think he said they don't view gossip as a serious sin, which is why it's so rampant in the group.
Mm-hmm.
They've known about these issues for a long time. People have been saying this since 2006, since the very beginning, in 1980. So they're all like, oh, we're conferring. And it's God's will, and it's so romantic when they kind of moan and bemoan about it. But the truth is that they're just sharing children's trauma because it's entertaining to them.
Yeah.
And they get more control over those children.
Because now they have a list of potential blackmail
Exactly.
for the future. Because that's the same thing that Scientologists do with their auditing sessions. Is you think you're going into these one-on-one, interviews, basically. They're basically interrogations. Getting people to spill their information to all their personal thing, and they're taking tabs. They have file cabinets full of stuff, and I don't know if they do it to that extent in Xenos, but obviously
they used to.
Every meeting I was in had a pen and paper.
Yep. Bingo.
Yeah.
They still do it.
So they got tabs on everyone. So if something comes up, someone starts stirring up trouble, and they just pull out that file and be like, "All right, let's."
And I can show you this later, Mark. But even in my exit interview from when I left the job, they wrote down my answers. But as I wrote them down, when he sent them back to me, what I told him was not necessarily what he wrote.
They do that all the time. Like I got really
I told him, and he asked me to read it back over to him. After we finished, he's like, "All right, here it is. Can you read this and make sure that what is on here is right?" And I'm like, "No, you need to change this and that because that's not what I said. Mm-hmm. This is the way I meant it."
Exactly. That happens all the time. They'll take anything, and I've said this multiple times. They'll twist it.
We need to go to break.
All right.
Yeah. We'll finish up the rest of this.
Be right.
Yeah, this is. I'm enthralled by the dialogue. All right, we'll be right back.
We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back.
Hi.
Let's jump right back in.
Back in where we
so
were.
We're going to start talking about how the group remains stealthy. So when people hear cult, they have some weird reactions because generally they think of the stereotypical definition. It's like, first we just have to admit that cult groups in modern society, they're not obvious. They don't go out of their way to announce themselves and make it to the point where it's just like, oh, this is clearly a cult group. They're not throwing blood on the wall. They're not having satanic sacrifices. Not that we know of, but they really...
Let me enter.
Allegedly.
Actually, big reveal. So these groups, they're very subtle. And one of Xenos' best points is that they're able to remain subtle because they have the perfect disguise. We're a Christian Bible study. Why wouldn't you want your kid at a Christian Bible study in high school? It's like, it could be a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a lot worse. And then same thing with college. We're living in a house dedicated to serving God. You're like, geez, that's a pretty good deal for my student while they're in high school. And then you meet this discipler, you're like, oh, we're just on fire about the Lord. We care about service. We care about working for God.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make an investment in each other.
Yeah. So, even though all the friendships are conditional, if you leave, those are all conditional friendships. They're not real. That's hard to say, but it's they're fake.
And you don't realize all that until you're too deep into it.
Yeah.
Because everything on the surface level is, oh, hey, it's great. We're doing great things. We're serving the Lord. We're doing all this stuff. And then by the time you're just years and so much money has been, poured into this, then when you realize that it's all a ruse, you're too far deep.
Well, yeah.
And for a lot of people, there's probably people in currently that are questioning,
they know.
but say anything because of the repercussions.
I have some horror stories with a lot more people know that it's a cult than can admit it.
Mm-hmm.
And for everybody watching this who isn't in Xenos, everybody in the group knew about the cult accusation before it started. All 5,000 people knew. Every person in the adult group knew. They all knew there was issues in the college group. And it's been brought up for almost 18 years straight.
Mm-hmm.
And the adult
They're
group,
transparent about it. They're like, this is what people think, but this is actually what it is. They correct it very quickly.
yeah, they don't like admitting that there's issues. They don't go to the police when there's issues. They keep it all in-house, generally. They don't tell leaders. They don't tell parents. They do tell... The only reason they'll tell parents is if they're Xenos parents and they're trying to belittle the kid. Like, oh, your kid was doing this. And it's like, why'd you go to my dad to tell him that? And it's like,
Because then you get it from your group leader, you get it from your friends, and then all of a sudden you're getting it from your parents.
Exactly. So the stealth, it's under the cover of being a Christian group. It's under the cover of being, very, like, we're helping people. We're having people's relationships grow with Christ. But the truth is, it's just a cover. That's what it is. And it takes time. It took me, I think, almost a year from the first time I heard the cult accusation when I was just Googling the name. Someone had mentioned in my group that someone was calling it a cult. I Googled Xenos, and the autocomplete, for those who don't know, generally just lists the top searched result.
Mm-hmm.
So it means other people are searching for it, to the point where it's more searched for than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So people were Googling Xenos is a cult more than they were Googling the name of the church.
Mm-hmm.
That was a red flag to me, but it took me almost a year or 2 years to really go, that was real. Because the great thing about it, and I've even seen this against members who've left, they question it. Like, since there's so much gaslighting, all your friendships are conditional, you leave, your mental state is broken. And so what happens is that you're stuck, and you're like, wait, no, I can't, maybe it was just me, Like, maybe I just made a mistake. Maybe it was just...
They make you think that you're the problem and not they're the problem.
And they'll say that when you leave, you were never dedicated.
Yeah.
You weren't into it. You care about the world more. It's like, no, I care about actually getting my college degree. I care about not going mentally insane inside of a ministry house. Like, that's what I care about. I don't care about the world. And the world is just some caricature they bring up. Some puppet. It's ridiculous.
Did any of that happen to you when you left?
I knew that they were going to do that, so I left. No one knows this. Fun fact. So the old members of my group are sure they're watching this. But I left by going out to less and less meetings, so I didn't make it abrupt. So that way, that they wouldn't have some big event and then start gossiping intensely. They still gossiped, and I heard about it because they'll tell you. Like, you can ask them, and they'll tell you. It's ridiculous. Literally, it's the most absurd thing to the point where it's comedic. But I left by when I realized that these guys are going to betray me. Like, they're traitors. And so you're kind of slowly walk out the door with your hand on the gun, kind of looking around like, I'm not doing this,
Right.
like Red Dead.
It's about to be the red wedding up in this bitch.
Yeah, very much. When you realize that, that's what gets you. You're like, oh, God. Like, the stories of people trying to leave ministry houses, like my friend, he left, and it's like everybody's crying, all men too, and they're all trying to confront him, and then this discipler comes up and shows this extremely angry side to him. And, this is guy is supposed to be his friend, but my friend told me, in that moment, he said something along the lines of, he saw, the discipler knew. He knew what the group was and why that guy was leaving.
Mm-hmm.
That's the stealth thing. You leave, you're emotionally broken, you don't know how to, that discipler knew. Everybody in the group knows. But you can't say it out loud. You bring it up, you're going to get lampooned in the group. And you really will. Trust me. So the stealth thing, it just always boggles my mind, because that's the thing what goes over most people's heads. I went out to a ministry house one time and it was normal. Yes, it's not going to be obvious. Most modern Ponzi schemes and things that they generally aren't obvious enough that anybody can look in it.
Yeah, because that's how they've been able to operate for as long as they have. It's not like a bunch of people, in a room with a pentagram on the ground and, drinking the Kool-Aid and stuff, because that would be too obvious.
Coming down from the heavens.
Yes, Lord Xenu.
Praise to Xenu.
Yeah,
So,
they disguise themselves as just a traditional organization.
And then when someone like me comes forward, well, now I'm anti-Christianity somehow.
Right.
Now I'm anti-church. Now I'm a hate group. I know I'm part of, what's the term they use? I think it'd be hate group or hate crime. Yeah, hate crime.
Right.
They try to throw that,
you're trying to dismantle the fabric of what they are.
Well, because he's going against Christianity.
Right.
So obviously anyone who's opposing Christianity, you're the Antichrist.
Yeah, I'm some religious arsonist.
That's their logic.
He's not doing this to spread awareness for people, learning, trying to better themselves, trying to leave Xenos. He's just throwing a wrench into Xenos, therefore he's throwing a wrench into Christ.
Yeah. Xenos to them is basically God.
Yeah.
I mean that.
Yeah, and their interpretation of the Bible is just very...
Real quick, it affirms everything the group does. Like, if you go to their teachings, it's like, this is why we do it. Like, it's not about living a better life, it's about justifying the group's actions.
But you can even read a Donald Trump tweet and think that he's the best president. If you read it in one little context, one little line out of a big blurb or whatever, like the shit that gets published, you look at one line and you're like, oh wait, yeah, he said a really good thing. But then you look at what he said the next sentence and you're like, oh, that really...
Yeah. Context is important.
That really wasn't a good thing. Like what they talk about in, I think it's Exodus with rape or whatever, and about how it's... I'm not going to get it right, so I'm not going to say it. But there's something very controversial in there that if you read it one way, but then you don't read the next sentence, you think that it's acceptable to do this horrible thing to women.
Context is important with Xenos because some people why does it matter? Is named Alien Christian Fellowship, and in the last year they say, it also means hospitality. Yeah, correct. Yeah, okay. Dive into the dictionary and find that one at the last moment. But for the 4 or 5 years they had it as Alien Christian Fellowship.
They're from space?
Oh yeah.
Do we need to bring back the Space Force?
It's an alien death cult. But
Space Force!
So what's happening with the alien stuff is that they basically mean outsider. They mean we're a countercultural group, and we're kind of... We do everything differently. We do things in a way that the world doesn't understand, or they'll say the culture or the world or whatever. And they're like, oh, Americans are so focused on their careers. And it's like, also, you do have a document that does say, by Dennis McCallum and Scott Risley, high-paying careers are dangerous. They also say low-paying careers are dangerous, but they only say that because generally people won't have enough money to donate. So, they're telling you how much money you should make. They're telling you that you only can have one income at a time. You should not have dual incomes, and that generally puts the woman in the relationship as a homemaker.
Right.
And if she wants to do that, fine. But generally, having old guys tell you to do that's kind of weird.
Yeah,
it's kind of questionable.
Yeah. And during my employment. They actually, whenever I'd ask for a raise, they said that I didn't need to make any more money because there's no reason that a person doing this job with where you live and what you do with no kids should need to make anything more than what you make right now. And I'm sitting there busting my ass every week, going out of my way, learning new things, all this stuff, and I'm basically limited to this sub-marginal pay cap that wasn't even relative to what was also in the industry. And when my boss, who was not a Xenos person, I would talk to him about it, he would have to go talk to his boss, who was a Xenos person, and then he basically came back with the answer of there's no money to do it. But he has the books, he has the numbers, and he's like, Justin, I see the money is there, but they don't think it's worth it.
There's enough money. They raised $5 million to build the warehouse.
And am I safe to assume that the leaders or the higher-ups aren't in financial trouble, or as they want to make it seem like careers aren't important, money isn't important, for the lower level of the pyramid.
The
but
plebs.
I'm safe to assume that the higher ups are taken care of.
Yeah.
And even the people that I worked with, we were encouraged to go to these events and donate money out of our own paycheck to put back into the organization, and even encouraged to link things such as our Kroger card or other things. So that, have you guys ever heard of this, like charitable.me or something like that, where you go on and if you have a Kroger or Starbucks card, 1% of that purchase can go to a nonprofit? Well, the company I worked for is registered as a nonprofit on that. We were encouraged as an organization to tell to ourselves and have everybody else put that number on there so that every single purchase I make at Kroger is going to benefit the group.
Tax-free.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, we publish our financial documents. Technically, they don't. They say they do, but they're not very detailed. They just say they're budgeting, how much has been given, and that's about it. They say how much was, they're like one other thing. And so that's not a financial document. That's just like a PR stunt. They say so. Like, well, we're the only church that puts our financial records out publicly. It's like we're one of the few. It's like, well, most churches should do that to begin with.
You're not taking a screenshot of usbank.com and posting it.
Exactly. It's not actual financial information because the leaders all write books. They all sell books to the college students. we don't know how much money the leaders make. We don't know where it's coming from. We don't know who are the landlords and where's that money going.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of questions where, when it comes to basic accounting, you're like, they're just lying, and they just don't expect to be called on their bluff.
Yeah.
A lot of the people who go to the church own those houses. You know that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We didn't
Yeah.
mention that clearly earlier.
Yeah, which is absurd because they make way more than they should off those houses.
And
Yeah,
because
it's
they're
a $600 a month
Yeah,
house,
I mean-
and they're charging $150 to $400 a person.
Mhm.
yeah,
They're making
sometimes
profits
700.
on that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
fitting like 15 people into
Yeah.
the house.
Yeah.
And because they're a religious organization, they don't have to like legally publish all their specifics or
Well, the people who run those houses, run those things and stuff, I'm sure they're pseudo businesses that they run them under a certain name of, like I don't know, Amnesty Real Estate or something like that. I don't know, but they probably, you look at those businesses and they're tied back into people who run and work for those.
Yeah. It's just not so
for the
obvious that
organization.
anybody could walk in and notice that. You know, it's like they have maybe, I don't know if they have shell companies, but a lot of things, it's just subversive. That's why the whole cult thing. The other thing, too, you have to consider, for members to recognize it's a cult, they generally have to do something along the lines of also admit that all their friendships are fake, that their entire college experience and high school experience was a ruse, that the possibility that they were actually born into a cult group, like, they're not going to shoot their own, you know? Like, it's so challenging psychologically to do that. People believe the same thing. It's like, all your friends were fake. Like, that puts you as a loser position.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you realize, I fell for a cult group, I lost all my friends, they weren't even my friends to begin with. Oh my God, you know? And the same thing with people, too. It's like, most people aren't going to challenge a church group because Xenos goes, you can look it up yourself. You'll see members just harassing people online.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, and this is a really classic one. They'll be like, oh, I'm sorry you had a bad experience, but I've had a great experience at Xenos.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, which is interesting because they all say that. Martha McCallum, Dennis McCallum's mother, is basically kind of she started making, we could call it the literature for the cult defense.
Mm-hmm.
The members are still using. And one thing about a cult is that they generally listen to their leaders pretty subserviently. And I'm having, random 17-year-olds from all across, Columbus, Ohio, say the same thing at the same time. And, like, I can track it, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they'll come up to me like, oh, you need to read James Rochford's definition of a cult. It's an essay by a Xenos leader. It's like, we're going to read internal literature about the definition of a cult?
Right, doesn't that seem have a little bit of a
Does anybody
bias?
else see the red flag over there? Like,
Right.
That's what gets me, is that the stealth thing, it took me a while because I had to see it. Like, the character of the group had to reveal itself.
Mm-hmm.
But because I was reading a forum thread in, like, 2012, people calling it a cult of all sorts. Some of it was emotional, but the truth was it took time for me to realize, put two and two together. Because I was a kid, and I was thinking, why did that happen? Why did we lay out all that guy's personal information? Why is my friend acting so weird? I had one instance where I've had the police called on me 4 times in my life, and all 4 times have been directly because of Xenos. 2 were because of the website, fun fact, and then 2 before that, the cops were called out to our home church. So the first time, I think we were at a elementary school, cops got called because we were just hanging out there. Oh, we're a Bible study. Oh, get the hell out of here. Second time, we're not a cult. Where's a Bible study? And then the second time,
Right.
it's like the cops were called because people were trying to prank each other's cars, which in their understanding of engineering was basically destroy the other person's car. So the neighbors called the cops. And the cops, they're shining a flashlight in my eye. I'm not happy about that. It's like, what are you guys doing? I was like, I'm sitting in the truck. It's like, and then being driven home, we drop off some guy. One of the leaders is one of the same leaders who ousted this guy, all this guy's personal information too. And I'm like, I'm not happy about the cops being called. We should bring up the worker group. Like the conversation, kind of,
Yeah.
the social correction. Like,
Did you call it that at that time?
What do you
the
mean?
worker group?
It's-
Would you have said it in that?
yeah,
direct-
it's
okay,
called the
just-
worker group or the prayer group. Generally.
Okay.
You
I
can
just
also
was
call it a
wondering if they had those
KGB
own
meeting.
internal definitions. Sorry.
Yeah, definitions can vary group from group, and sometimes they don't say certain words. Like, we'll get into that later. But so I keep trying to tell them, like, I want to talk about the cops getting called because I don't think it's good. And generally it's kind of a common sense thing to say. The cops shouldn't be called to a Bible study. Think about it. It's a radical idea. And then what happens is that he starts going on. He's like, no, you're better at God, you're better at the group. And I'm like sitting here in the backseat of his, car that he doesn't know how to drive, stick shift. I'm like trying to like think about it. And he's like, why is this guy so obsessed with trying to tell me that my anger is at the group? Like, no, I had issues with the group, I might have issues with God, but it's like, why are you trying to, like, oh, you're bitter at God. Guess what? 4 years later, I'm having members come up to me. I heard that you were embittered about God. I heard you're bitter at God. I heard you're bitter at the group. It's like, no.
You heard wrong.
Yeah, it's like, that's that guy trying to defend his group and trying to prevent an issue from being brought up. 4 years later, 5,000 people know that, which is incorrect information. And guess what? The third guy in that conversation is now my friend, and he can vouch for me. So it's like, because there was a third person there to witness the entire thing.
Right.
It's like, my God. It's like, but this is the whole stealth thing, because they're kids. They're college students who, they can punch down on a high schooler. They can keep, like, oh, don't, you don't have to bring the cops in this. Like, you don't have to bring your parents into this. And
they're just quote-unquote cool enough to make you believe almost anything.
Yeah, and by the time parents realize that their kid has basically been kidnapped, it's too late. They've signed a lease, all their friends are in Xenos, and they've been, I don't know if it'd be gaslit or they've been gaslighted to the point of they don't trust their parents.
Yeah.
They don't trust society,
They don't have your best interest in mind.
Yeah, you can't trust these people. It's like, well, that does great to your psyche.
Well, I've been friends with John for 15 years. John knows everything about me.
Yeah.
What
And
did John
suddenly-
say
yeah.
about this and that whenever this thing happened? Well, I didn't tell John. Well, okay. Well, how good is John for you then? Like, well,
The world doesn't understand, though, man. The world, it's like, it's your parents and the world system and Satan. It's like, ever heard of us versus them mentality?
Yeah.
It's very common in cults.
But yeah, but they know what's best for you.
Yeah.
They know what's
Because
right.
we know God's will. I'm not speaking for myself. I'm just speaking for God's will, which is
Right.
the highest moral authority probably one can invoke. So if you're arguing with the most difficult thing to argue with, which is God, who's obviously speaking through me. I obviously know God's will for your life. This guy told me, look at all these Bible verses he has. It's like, that's a simplistic way, but that's what happens.
And that's how they can win any argument.
Yeah.
Or have any defense or accusations thrown at them, is that they know best because they're not speaking from themselves. They're speaking from the Word of God.
There's no room for discussion in the group.
Right.
I can vouch for that myself, and other people can as well. They don't allow issues to exist. They don't report things to the police generally. They don't let any bad press. I've seen emails where there was an accident with a group member and they passed, and they said, don't post anything because we don't want any bad news or bad rumors circulating.
where somebody had died?
Yeah, this was a different instance, but there's a lot of things where they just don't. Even I was reading an email by Dennis McCallum. He's like, you can't trust people, what people say. You have to hear it from the group. Dennis McCallum, it's his email. Someone sent it to me. It's like, he said that, which is the same sentiment people are coming to me with now. Like, you can't trust those stories. They're gossip. I accuse them of gossip first on the website and Instagram. And then all of a sudden, they're saying the same thing to me.
Yeah.
Like, that's an interesting coincidence. Like,
yeah, that's hypocritical.
Yeah.
Like,
and no one suspects it.
yeah.
That's the thing. That's the greatest ruse, is no one believes it's real. Because it's too scary to admit when you're in it. It's really scary as an outsider, and if you don't do your research, all I did with the website is I Googled Xenos, and I went through the results, and all of this had happened. From a website and Instagram and a couple of photos I had taken from the internet. And that's the result that happened, is that everybody collectively lost their minds, and I was just putting all the resources that already existed on. I'm the third website to do this, but people, since they didn't have the resources, they can mention. Even my friend who's in the group for a year, he's like, maybe they're just bad people, or maybe it's not a cult. Like, okay, if they're not a cult, they're cult-like, which isn't much better.
Right.
If they're not cult-like, they're extremely unethical. All three are just deplorable. Like, they're terrible places to be at as a church. So, and a lot of the leadership doctrine, a lot of the undercurrent of control in the group, it's all about saying this kind of like, get further into the group. It's like when you start to hear the lingo and the dialect, you start to realize something's not right. That's the stealthy aspect. It's an undercurrent. It's not obvious. They're not going to announce their presence. They're going to subtly manipulate your child away from you if you're a parent, or take your friends away from you if you're in a high school group.
Yeah. So they don't. Yeah. They don't seem like they want to make themselves seem like any other Christian group or denomination.
Yeah.
But in reality, once you get into it, you start to realize the cracks in that, and that they don't conduct themselves in a normal way.
Yeah.
They're not a traditional religious group.
Which is why they have the financial documents, and they'll bring it up every opportunity they have. Oh, we have financial documents. Which is why they'll edit their own Wikipedia page. Fun fact, we can see your IP. Like, we know not where you live, we know the general area. So you can see where people are editing it from, and it's just hilarious. But you can see them try to edit their Wikipedia to have no bad press. They'll put the exercise stuff. Like, we've had all these great Christian theologians. It's like, because they didn't know. Like, they had this, this was recent. They added a huge list of people on XSI. And you can say, well, they're just trying to advertise. It's like, no, they're trying to say, but we've had all these speakers. It's an appeal to authority. It's an appeal to, we've had all these Christian speakers. It's like, but the truth is, your group is still a cult. It's still controlling people. People have committed suicide trying to leave because their mental state's so bad. The thing, I'm just reiterating this again, they remain so stealthy because it's such a hard thing for a person who's been in it since they're 14 or born into it. It's basically admitting psychological death. It's a crucifixion of the mind. To say, everything I've known has been a lie. Like, that is like a psychedelic nightmare. Like, that's something out of like a horror story. To realize everything that you've presented, everything you've seen, it's just an illusion. All your friendships are fake. Everything you've been convinced into a group that is in my opinion, no fundamental care about manifesting anything good into the universe. It's just about control. It's just about, it's just about pushing people further into this group, and it's very subtle. It's just, I wish people could see that.
Yeah.
Unless,
if you've never been a part of it, I haven't, so I can't even imagine like the level of psychological trauma that they instill on people.
Yeah.
But just that slow build of indoctrinating you into what they are, and then when you try and leave, it's like you don't know anything else.
And when you leave, this is what happens. Every personal piece of information you've ever shared will be shared. I guarantee you that. So if you said anything that doesn't put you in a good light, they will share it. They will, like you said, you're like, I didn't say that, remember? Like, they'll do that. So imagine your worst pieces of information that you confidentially shared, even though they lied to you, to someone, being shared amongst 50 people and then amplified.
Yeah, they twist it and make you seem even worse than...
They were going around when I started this saying I was mentally unstable, which is extremely disrespectful, by the way. They are obsessed with belittling people, defaming them, lying about them. I've had members like, oh, I know people who know you. It's like, you know people who know me? I was like, do I know you? It's like, no, I just know people that know you.
You knew me during a very difficult transitionary time of my life, of 8th grade to 10th grade. You don't know me.
Yeah, and what's great about that, too, is like, this guy's admitting that he's hearing gossip to me over social media messaging. He's saying that, oh, I've heard, like, and he's repeating the same things, like, oh, you're embittered. I'm hearing guys in the adult group, it's like, oh, I heard that you're embittered at God. It's like, I can name the conversation that I had with a member 4 months before I did this, who'd left twice, by the way, who's going around sharing a lot of false information, and we had a conversation, and I was trying to explain to her, it's like, I asked her something, and she said, oh, because they think you're bitter. She's like, everybody in the group thinks you're bitter, in this very condescending way. And I said, listen, your natural reaction when you find out that your entire life, or all your friends in this instance, were in a cult group, were lying to you, that the end goal would probably lead to your demise. Like, I explained to her, like, your natural reaction when losing all those friends and leaving is bitterness. Yeah. But I didn't say I was bitter. I said that's the natural reaction, because guess what? Your body has emotions to process things biologically. Like, that's a fact. Yeah. And, and then, lo and behold, 4 months later, also a fun fact for this person and people who know her, she's someone who said, she said this, the first part, for sure. She said, even if Xenos is a totally corrupt group, and then she said something along the lines, is like, I'd rather be there because I have a chance to be happy. And this is the same person
that is some mental gymnastics right there.
Yeah. So
when they do spread around that stuff and, twist it around, it's almost like they're reading from a script.
Yes.
So they're told what to say to people. Yeah. What is this if I have a run-in with this person, what is my issue with them? Here's what you need to believe, and this is what you need to say to them.
It's like a politician where they have a list of things that they've done wrong, and then they've gone over it with somebody, taken classes, Leadership Institute, or whatever, and learned exactly, if you get posed this question, this is your answer, this is how you react, and that's universal across the organization.
Yeah. Oh, that Xenos website, oh, it's just some better person. Oh, they're crazy. Oh, they're this, they're that. It's like, okay, well, when you have hundreds of people saying that Xenos is a cult since 1980 to 2018, since I don't know when the group was formed now. I'm trying to remember, because Dennis McCallum was arrested in 1969 for drug trafficking. Groups formed in 1970. Fun fact. He put that in his book. He put that in his book, Members of One Another, read the preface. The preface, what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And so the group's formed, called the Fish House, 1970, turns into Xenos. People have been calling it cult-like when it was the Fish House.
Mm-hmm.
People talk about how you can't throw a rock without having someone who had on campus, without finding someone who had a bad interaction with the Fish House. So it starts growing and growing. Also, they had a huge schism in 1991, 1993. Same thing. It's like they're not dealing with issues. And I'm not going to bring that up right now, but the schism was over some pretty bad stuff. They don't admit issues, and they can be stealthy that way. No bad press.
Yeah.
And just to lead on to what you said about him getting arrested and drug trafficking or whatever, and putting that in his book, that's just a mechanism of saying that I was a hurt, broken person. You're a hurt, broken too. You know, we can make that better.
Yeah, they do that a lot. They'll most of the people in Xenos are broken at some point by someone, and a lot of them have bad families, and a lot of those bad families are just Xenos families, to be honest, and they take advantage of that.
Yeah. Let's take a second break here, and then we'll come back in. So, thanks for sticking around if you're still here at this point.
We know you are.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. Let's jump right back into where we left off.
This section, I think we should talk about the psychology of the group and how it functions. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on there. These are my personal opinions on this. So do your own research into this. So, I believe that the group suffers from a lot of things. Obviously, the first is that most people in Xenos don't have an individualistic sense of self. Dennis McCallum was doing a teaching. You can look it up. And he's talking about Satan and his kingdom, and he's mentioning, careers, and he's mentioning individualism. That's something they bash on a lot. Is kind of, I won't say stereotypical, but like idealistic American ideas, like have a good career, have a good family life, have a social life.
The American dream.
Yeah, and then they'll be like, oh, Americans can't understand the idea of not dedicating your entire life to a church. It's like, Americans can't understand the idea of dedicating your entire life to a cult. Like there's a difference there. No one really has issues with Christians dedicating their lives to something higher than themselves. They have issues with people in large institutions controlling people's minds to the point where they're basically broken when they leave. And the psychology of the way that plays out inside the group is that, so you don't have a sense of self, so you can't stand up to people, because you need a spine to stand up to people, because you have to be willing to get hit. You have to be willing to, go into challenge, fight, and maybe verbally, not physically. And what happens with Xenos is that people don't have individual identities. They don't have a sense of self. They latch onto the group, and then Xenos is them. Xenos is God. Xenos is my group. And then they'll say things like, well, I don't care about having being in a church group. I care about my relationship with God, which is code for Xenos. They'll say, well, yeah, God could take me out of Ohio, but I really just don't feel like it's going to happen. It's like, wait, does anyone else catch that? Like, anyone else find that a little weird that you're kind of obviously obsessed with Xenos because, A, social relationships, that's why it's a drug. Like, biologically, that's why it's addicting.
Yeah.
It's like you need social relationships. Social relationships are a huge factor in most aspects of your life. And what happens when you don't have them is that you suffer tremendously. So people find Xenos, and that's why they stay. And they will damn near take anything to survive in that social group because it's so addicting.
That's textbook fascism.
Yeah.
That for taking away that that sense of individuality.
Yeah.
And making it so your entire life is about serving the group rather than serving yourself. Not to be like having individuality is selfish. I think that people need to have individuality.
Yeah.
That's what makes us who we are. But when you're in a group like that where all you're doing is serving the betterment of the group, that's fascism.
Yeah, and it's groupthink too.
Yeah.
Like that obviously goes in line with that, is that your thoughts aren't your own. It's just you're getting theological, I don't even argue it's theology in my opinion, but you're getting theological vomit from people and they're just reciting it. That's why the members are all telling me the same thing.
Right.
It's freaky. They're DMing me the same thing
because they're reading from a script. They're
Yeah.
like you were saying earlier with the judo moves. They learn how to make these arguments.
Then they will say, "But I'm speaking for myself," but they don't realize that it's like inception. The thought has already been planted in their mind. They just believe it's their own identity.
Yeah.
You're not an individual in Xenos, and you could even prove it with, some of the members will come at me super aggressively, only online, of course, or they might show up outside of my house, but, things like that.
Yeah.
But when I confront them, they shrivel away. Like the guys who showed up outside of my house, fun fact, I confronted them, and guess what? They're packing for the hills the next thing you know. They're trying to be confrontational as they're moving away from me.
Because they're not used to that. They're used to, within the group, confronting someone and be like, "Oh no, I'm the bad person," and they're on top. But the second somebody starts to fight back, they don't know how to react.
They're used to getting whatever they want.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like a hell of a statement, but it's true because they'll make ridiculous claims to parents and friends, and they'll expect you to go along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's this weird social diarrhea they all have that they don't understand that what they're doing is kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't get that there's just this wrong vibe with them because of the things that they ask of people, the way they communicate. Like for especially entrenched members, they're not even able to interact with people normally. They won't go out to social events outside the group. They won't go to family events. They won't do things that they'll view the environment as hostile because it's not Xenos.
Yeah.
Like they don't know how to live outside of that environment.
It's not healthy.
Oh yeah, it's a psychological.
It's
It's not even Stockholm syndrome. It's like psychological bondage.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know what terms.
It's a mental prison.
Yeah.
Anything outside of what you've been told to believe is toxic.
Yeah. And then people like us, well, we're satanic. I mean, that's an email from Pat Reeder. I'm influenced by Satan. I'm under satanic influence. Like, are you kidding me?
This is news to me.
This is news. Yeah. Like that was.
I mean, we have multiple pictures of Jesus hanging around the apartment.
Yeah, we actually do. We have two Jesus pictures.
I haven't seen you attack them, bite them. You haven't burst into flames.
I only burst into flames. Like I have a fire extinguisher in my back pocket.
Okay.
So I put myself out real quick. So, but they always have these things like, oh, they're satanic. It's like, do you hear yourself? Like that's one thing I kind of like think. This is an interesting fun fact. So, and I didn't realize this until I was investigating like social relationships and why they're important.
Mm-hmm.
So in a social setting or a social group, you'll have people as kind of ways to correct you. So if you say something weird, they won't laugh at a joke, or they may kind of talk to you afterwards like don't say that, or it's like or they might affirm you. They might say that was hilarious, or they'll laugh at a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And you can learn like what jokes are funny, how you can go about things. Like you can learn to exist socially, and then what happens in Xenos is you never get any correction. You never get any rebuke for doing anything wrong. As long as you're destroying your sense of self and your future for Xenos, I mean, they'll have different phrases for it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll all cheer you on.
Right. You could do no wrong if you're serving the group.
Yeah. And it plays out really nasty with psychology too, because one is think about the implications of this. If Xenos is a cult group, most likely it means that everybody in Columbus, Ohio, who's known about this, has realized they've known about a cult group for years and didn't do anything. But also you have to realize that there's this implication of, well, people aren't going to bring it up. Like people aren't going to talk about the cult accusation because they don't want to ruin their lives if they're just a normal person, because they know they'll be attacked by Xenos.
Yeah.
Which has happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's really aggressive, I guess you could say about it, is that they don't want to ruin their life by speaking the truth, which is a very bad issue, because if no one speaks the truth, then we all collectively go to hell. That's just a very simple way of putting it, because we all start lying to each other, and guess what happens in Xenos? Like, I'm not going to accuse you for not doing something that was wrong. I'm going to accuse you for not doing something that doesn't support the groupthink. They won't go to the website, they won't check the Instagram, they won't do anything that would challenge their worldview. Like, that's what they believe, and they'll say it's about God, but good Lord, I was in that church for 2 years, and I can tell you, as someone who has a basic understanding of Scripture, and they'll say, no, you don't. It's like, of course I don't, because I'm not reciting what you believe every single day. Like, they don't care about any divine manifestation of love or goodness or peace or whatever a Christian religion would look like in the most ideal setting. They care about using Scripture to entrench people in their religion. And the religion in this context is much more of it is a cult. Like, that's what's scary about it. and they have so many psychological advantages. Again, you have college-age students preying on freshmen in high school, 14-year-olds, 10-year difference, 24-year-olds and 14-year-olds. You have people who, you saw the thing about serotonin levels, they're all depressed, is one way I'm trying to say it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're depressed because they're not getting enough sleep, they're not getting enough food, they all steal each other's food in the ministry houses, so generally. The guys' houses are generally worse, but even the girls' houses, some of the girl leaders are completely neurotic. And so they'll scream at each other, they'll fight. If a group leader hates somebody, they'll go out of their way to attack the person. Here's a great example I just thought of. There's my friend who was living in a ministry house. He had to go to a funeral for his cousin who passed, tragically. And the house knew, I believe. And two people came up to him because they were moving in for like a wedding. And they're like, can we use your truck today? And he said, no, I have to go to this funeral. And they said, can we use the truck? And he said, no, I have to go to this funeral for my cousin who died. And this is my car. And he's like, well, can't you just, let us use the truck? And this is basically the conversation summary. And he's trying to explain, like, I can't give you the truck so that you can move. Like, I know you were relying on me, but you didn't tell me. And then he realized they had this really disgusting expectation that he was just going to automatically, use my truck. Sure.
Yeah.
Who cares about the funeral, right? Just have
right. It's more about them
Yeah.
benefiting themselves rather than, understanding that someone is going through a tough time.
And the expectations that you'll do it.
Yeah.
The expectations when they ask you to, you can read about this, there's books written about German police and as they slowly descent into what you would consider the typical Nazi. The thing is, it's not like, okay, time to be a Nazi. It's like they're disgusted with the fact that they're doing things that are wrong. They know they're doing things wrong, but they don't want to abandon their comrades, which is why everybody's in the group. And they slowly start taking steps. It's like, this is wrong, but you did it. Like, I saw someone look through someone's phone in the group to try to find evidence of stuff. I saw things that were wrong, morally, ethically, illegally, and they will just do it though. Don't just want your friends, don't just want God. And then you'll continue to make steps that will subvert. They're really neuter potential. I want to bring this up real quick. They don't encourage people to pursue PhDs. I have multiple stories telling them that girls and guys saying that they told me not to pursue a PhD. They have a lot of instances where they'll discourage people from pursuing challenging careers. Like, this is facts. They have that on their website. People can affirm it. Like, I'm not just spreading gossip. They're the ones who start. Like, I've accused them of gossip first. Like, I'm not just making this up.
Yeah.
Like, I've done my research, and I was in the group. And that's what gets me is, like, they can't admit that they've done something wrong because they know that by admitting it, it implicates so much. A lot of people...
If they've done one thing wrong, the dominoes fall, and all of a sudden all these other things are suddenly true.
Absolutely.
So they just deny everything.
Yeah.
And I've even seen instances of, when it comes to employment, that people who are younger, who are looking to get into the job force, are almost leaning on other people in the group to do the work that they're doing. So there was a guy that was a ministry house leader. Wait, no, he was a home church leader. And there was a girl who was trying to leave where I was working, start working somewhere else, and he was working in food service at the hospital. He got her a job to work food service at the hospital. There was somebody who was working at Forever 21 as a manager and had like 4 people come work there at Forever 21 because it worked with the schedule of their home churches, it worked with the schedule of their ministry hours, so
That's why they only take careers, because they only want to fit within the group's context. They'll buy cars because of that. They'll get SUVs. They'll Xenos families will purchase homes that can host, like you said, lots of people.
Yeah.
And they'll encourage people to keep all their kids in the church, so they'll have children and the children be raised in the church.
Go to Xenos schools.
Yeah, so they have 8th grade. They have Xenos schooling till 8th grade, and they're all in cell groups, which are basically home churches. Before that, then they're eventually sent out to mainstream high schools to bring people out.
It's a recruitment tactic.
Yeah. And it's a control tactic. I'm not against Christian schooling or private schooling. I'm against cult tactics.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
one other big thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is that, I'm going to reiterate this, it's like, well, why can't they just leave? It's like, well, that's a great point. It's like, well, it's the psychological death. It's, again, you have to remember, 17, 15, 14, 12 years old, that's a hard time to be alive biologically. That's challenging. You're trying to figure a lot of things out at once, and things that might seem normal are life or death. And trying to leave that is just...
Losing all my friends at 16 for me would have...
Yeah.
I don't even know what that have done to
It's fear, I'm assuming, that keeps people in. It's the fear of that you've been wrong for all these years. You've been lied to. You're the fear of losing everything that you've gotten up to this point. So, I mean, that's traditional cult tactics. Keep people afraid. Keep people in line. Keep people believing. And
Well, yeah, I mean, let's say every single day you ate a bowl of cereal, right? You thought it was Lucky Charms. Every single day after day, you sat down to eat Lucky Charms, you know.
I don't like Lucky Charms, by the way.
Just humor.
Okay, all right.
What's your favorite cereal?
He seems like an Apple Jacks guy.
I do like
For
Apple
the sake
Jacks.
of
All right.
time, we'll just go with Apple Jacks.
Okay,
because
let's
I don't
do
want
Apple
to draw this
Jacks.
out. We
I
have
like
much
the
more
stupid
important things than my
marshmallows. I
analogy.
like Marshalls.
Xenos Crunch.
Yeah.
The Xenoid Shuffle.
So, you know, every morning, you sit down, you have yourself your bowl of Apple Jacks. But what happens when you find out you're not eating Apple Jacks, you're eating, you know, just shit out of a bag? Someone tells you this. No, hold on.
Okay.
Someone tells you your whole life you've been eating shit out of a bag.
Yeah.
Are you going to listen to someone telling you that, or are you going to hunker down and continue to eat shit out of the bag?
I love my Apple Jacks.
Yeah, no.
You're like, I've been doing this for 18 years. I've been eating shit out of a bag.
Right, and nothing bad
My
has happened
parents
to me.
bought me shit in a bag. My parents my whole life have given me shit in a bag.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep eating shit in a bag.
This happens in stock trading,
Yeah.
too, is that people, they'll get a bad position, and they'll find information that indicates the stock is going bust, and they'll double down. This happens to a lot of rich people who don't, a lot of people don't know this, but they'll invest lots of money impulsively. It's a bad position, stock goes down 30-40%. Oh, it's on sale. They'll buy more, and then stock goes to bust. Yeah, it's quite a it's a problem with. There's so many elements that I think any psychologist would just spend, you know, years looking at how Xenos functions and talking to ex-members and talking to people who had experience, and you realize there's just instance after instance after instance of like, oh wow, that's a living example of like Stockholm syndrome, or like, oh wow, that's a living example of like it's almost, it's like this combination of like a science experiment, tragic, comedic, and heartbreaking, because there's so many elements to it that sometimes I think about like if I hadn't left. But I also realize how much damage was caused by staying in. And you think about, like, what happens to, like, can someone who's been in the group 10 years leave? Like, that's a real question. It's like, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is, like, a lot of people in Xenos have been hospitalized because of Xenos into a mental hospital. And a lot of them already have issues with depression and mental illness. And fun fact, a lot of members, you know, they're trying to tell, oh, well, we're not responsible for that. It's like, well, that's partly true, but it's like blaming people for their mental illnesses that you make worse is not only extremely disrespectful, but it's extremely incompetent.
Yeah.
And they've demonstrated a lot of times in having people go off medications, which I've seen people, I've heard from my friend who was in the group, you know, they encourage that. They have lots of issues with people trying to take their own lives, with self-injury, and if those issues are found out, they'll be chastised, which obviously doesn't make things any better. Or they might be kicked out.
Yeah, that just makes them
like, imagine
even
this.
worse.
You have no will to live, and you try to take your own life. You almost fall victim to suicide. Then your entire social network cuts you off because they don't approve of that.
That doesn't do anything to help.
Exactly.
Especially when they go around acting like that they're a group that cares for people and encourages the well-being of people, and they're just making it worse.
And that happens all the time. Here's a fun fact, too. They all say, oh, well, each group's different. It's like they all have the same doctrine. They all have the same issues. They all indicate the same thing. It's not just one really bad home church that makes a lot of stories. It's like, I have 66 stories. I can get another 15 in the next week. I can get another 30 in the next 2 weeks. This isn't just some one isolated instance. This is systematic abuse. And we have to call it for what it is.
Yeah.
And that's a hell of a thing to realize as an adult. Because most of us aren't used to real shit happening. We're just used to kind of like, oh, you know, my life's really easy. And then we're all like, wait a second, this is real. Like, this is scary.
Yeah, what I think is fascinating is how little just the general public in this area doesn't know about all this that's happening.
Actually, some do. I was handing out posters on campus, and literally I handed out 10 posters in person, and I think 4 people said... The first person I handed to, they looked at the posters. The Xenos is a cult one. You've probably all seen it.
Yeah.
I hand to them, they just go, oh.
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people that just, in a broad sense, they just hear the word Xenos, they're like, oh yeah, that Christian cult group or whatever, but they don't really know specifics about, what we've been talking about, what you've obviously been trying to raise awareness for.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just don't care. Like, they hear that, they know it exists, but they don't care enough to, say anything about it or, raise awareness about it.
And the people who really can raise awareness are the people who are sharing their stories.
Mm-hmm.
And these people they've been genuinely traumatized.
Yes.
Yeah.
In getting to that point where even you, it took a while. You said it took a while for you to get to a
3
point
years.
where you were willing to share, or you had enough awareness, or whatever it is, to get to the point where you're going to share it. So it's like the people who really need to get out and share this just really want to repress those memories and move on.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think that what you're doing is really causing people to be like, you know what, this happened to me, I need to share it.
Yeah.
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 I look like I'm about to say something.
I'll say something instead.
Yeah, you say something. I was thinking about something else.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. So that's, again, I'm going to lay it out a third time. That's the insidious nature of the group. They don't appear, they appear harmless. They appeal to a greater good. Parents trust them because they use the word Bible and Christianity, which I can't really blame them. It's like, and the things I have read that I haven't published, there's been people I've told, I think you should talk to your therapist or someone you trust before you share this. And I even put that on the website. I've had people decline to share because of the level of trauma they've experienced, because they said, this is so traumatizing, I can't even write about it. And people don't realize that people have been killed by this group. Maybe not directly, but indirectly, I absolutely guarantee you, multiple people, way more people, way more issues, way more mental hospitalizations than there should be for a church group. And this is the whole big thing. It's like Xenos can't decide if they want to be a church group or a cult. Either a church that wants to be a cult, or a cult that wants to be a church. And they're killing people along the way.
Yeah.
Are you aware that part of some of their other organizations actually run mental counseling agencies? Yeah,
they, from what I've heard, a lot of the Xenos counselors aren't up to par. And that's really hard to say because those are those people's careers. But in my experience, what I've seen and what I've heard from the stories, it all indicates that they have an abysmal view of mental health. They view it as something you can pray away. They view it as something you can't deal with, generally with medication. Now they're having to own their bullshit. Now they're saying, now they have to say, well, we have to get some people on medication. Not because they've had a change of heart. It's because I called them out to such a degree that they've realized that they're like, oh, we're completely naked on this. Like, we're exposed. And
the more people that know about that bullshit that's going on, the more that they have to defend their position, and the more they defend their position, the more the general public looks at it and says, well, that's bullshit.
Yeah. And it's a prime psychological trigger for a suicide attempt to have every single social network you have, besides maybe your parents, cut you off. I was only able to leave with great trauma because I had a group of friends, which I still hang out with now. And one of my friends was invited out, and we started playing Halo 5 in the ministry house. We had a lot of fun. And we started talking. I was like, oh, he's not in it. We were just talking about things for fun. And having that social relationship to leave was what got me out. I had a friend who was in the group for a long time. In a single conversation, I got him out. He didn't talk to me for a year. They're spreading gossip like, oh, you were talking to this person the entire time. I guarantee you I haven't talked to that person until he came to me. And then he's like, I'm having all these doubts. I don't know. Like, he's trying to explain to me, I just can't. Like, it's hard to say. It's hard to stomach. To realize you're in a cult group. To realize your life's been destroyed to some degree.
And I'm sure it's hard to even try and talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Like, I think we talked about that before, but like,
every problem that you'd had before in the past, when you brought it up to people in that group, you were told you were wrong.
Yes.
So you have a really hard time sharing that because you're wrong.
Yeah.
There's no other answer than you're wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Well, and it's even worse if now that they have this even more advanced tracking software and recognition, like you were saying, because all I had known about before was the, like you said, Covenant Eyes, where they could just track roughly where you had been and stuff. If they're able to see directly what you're saying to anyone, how can you even trust, what you're saying to people when they can track almost anything you're saying on your own phone or on your own social media, like anything like that? Like, makes it even harder to reach out to someone else for help.
Yeah, and put this all in context. They're a group they're a self-proclaimed group that's radical. So they're a radical religious group that uses tracking software on people's phones to see what they're saying. And they somehow know God's will to the point where the argument with them is not with them. It's with Scripture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, that I don't know. That just the whole thing is messed up. Their twisted ideology to think that they're being spoken to, at the top, being spoken to by God, and saying that the things that they're doing are justified.
And that's not to say that divine intervention is not a real thing.
Exactly.
But in the way that it's portrayed here is not. It's an individual's motive, not a God motive.
Exactly. So it's like, oh, this is just that person using God's will to make money and have control and have power, which is an issue the Old Testament talks about a lot. There's a lot of greedy kings doing dumb things that eventually destroys their nation, because guess what they care about? Control and power and maintaining the status quo. This isn't about some satanic attack on the church. This is about 300 people who've invested their entire lives into a group about control. They're not going to let it go down without a fight.
Yeah, and if someone, like you, comes along and tries to stir the pot, they're going to fight back.
Yeah.
Because they
very predictable ways, too.
Oh, yeah.
Which I knew was coming, which is why they made up a bomb threat, which is why they showed up on my house, which is why members...
They made up a bomb threat?
They made up a bomb threat. We'll go on that later, maybe. Like, they did a lot of things that were extremely unethical. Sorry. And they're not used to being called out. They haven't had a social correction. And I mean that, like, they haven't had someone kind of, like, sit down. Like, they could have saved the group. Let's be real. Like, they could have had a normal church. There's a lot of normal churches in Columbus. Some are worse than others, but there's some that just function, right?
Yeah.
They forgoed multiple opportunities to change. They know that. They're responsible for that. And even them saying that they had mistakes now would change very little, because they're saying mistakes on the initiative of hundreds of people speaking up, not, self-discipline.
Right. They would change because suddenly they're being called out. They have to defend themselves, or else they look like they fucked up.
Yeah. So in 1991, 1993, the church lost about 1,400 members. They say it's because it was church discipline. Because they didn't agree with the church hierarchy. They even have leadership documents talking about the same thing I was looking at last night on the website.
Yeah.
Saying, you shouldn't really disagree with the leaders. It's not obvious. It's not like so stupid you could be like, oh wow, this is so obvious. It's like, oh yeah, you really shouldn't disagree with the leaders in your home church, which allows them to get away with a lot of abusive things, because when no one speaks up, we all go to hell. And the interesting thing about that is that, so on their Wikipedia page, they're saying that it's like abusive, like that they schismed because they weren't agreeing with the church. The church, there's child abuse in the church, and they were saying that it wasn't real. Dennis said that. You can look it up. But
don't question the Führer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's messed up. Just everything. It's all messed up.
Yeah, it's hard to react to.
Yeah, let's take the last break. I'm assuming we'll see where we are, but yeah, we'll take another break, and we will be right back.
Welcome back from our fourth segment.
Hello. How's everyone doing? Are we
feeling
good?
I'm really
feeling weird.
I really appreciate Mark taking the time to come out today.
Oh yes, definitely, 100%.
I just love to kiss ass. It's my favorite.
No, I mean, I mean, it's a really good thing that
you don't really get the true
this.
perspective of the show if I don't say something kind of.
Yeah, I realize how tough
it
is
me
just
this week, Justin.
Come out publicly now and
the Lucky Charms analogy.
Talk about everything that you're talking about. So we really appreciate it, and then everyone that is watching this, I'm sure, appreciates the fact that you've done this, created this website, and had an opportunity for people to reach out who have also felt the same way.
Yeah, it's been cathartic, and I'm very thankful how many people who've very bravely, in my opinion, have chosen to share their stories and to speak up about this, because, I mean, I'm happy to hear that I've helped people, but a lot of this I couldn't have done without people coming forward.
Yeah.
That's the huge part.
Yeah.
People need to be validated. It needed to be validated.
Yes.
This is why it was so important for us, whenever we decided to talk about this, that we make sure that we get this right. Because with all the gossip and everything surrounding it, this needed to be done right. And I appreciate you for doing it right.
Yeah, and also
evidence-based,
factual, objective
Yeah.
to some degree. You know, there's obviously bias there, but it's hard not to have bias in such a obviously emotional case. And I am working to get basically certification from, I'll say, people who are extremely qualified to talk about cult groups to affirm the website. And I've been in conversations with those people, so that will be coming soon.
That's good. And
excited to hear about that.
Yeah. It's great.
I'm sure there's
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sure there'd probably be Xenos people that'll watch this and refute pretty much everything you've been saying and we've been saying. So
if you're part of Xenos and you want to send us a message and come on and talk, we're not here to attack. We're here to have an open dialogue.
Yeah, I'd love to hear, some of their justifications, just because I've never personally talked to anybody that is still entrenched in Xenos, and it would be interesting to hear that.
They're hard to have a conversation with.
Or just send us hate mail, whatever. Bring it on, please.
Don't
send him.
We don't get any emails right now. We want all of yours.
Don't send him hate mail. Send me the hate mail. I will.
This is our phone.
If you are going to send hate mail, though, just include a tablecloth for us, please.
Oh, yeah. Send us tablecloths, too.
Stop telling me to read James Rochford's article. You're all doing it at the same time, and it's obvious and it's weird.
All right.
Okay? Having hundreds of cult members, or not hundreds, but a lot of cult members tell you, hey, read our article about how we're not a cult.
Yeah. Hey, come on, man. We're not bad. We're not a cult.
We have an internal essay that we all read. Whenever this thing's brought up.
You talked a little bit about that, like that, how they all read the same material and stuff. That is very similar to, and I know I'm bringing this up again, but Scientology, how L. Ron Hubbard's books are required reading, those are the sacred texts of Scientology, and that's such a confirmation bias to be okay, all the things that I believe are the internal texts, the internal documents, and the writings.
So whenever there's an issue, there's that they refer to internal literature generally.
Yeah.
So
you're not really encouraged to do your own outside research and to make your own decisions. You're just supposed to kind of go with the flow.
Which is very different than most religions. I realize that broad Christianity has the Bible. There's the Quran or the
Torah.
The Torah. I'm part Jewish. I should know that off the top of my head. But people are encouraged to find their own way, in most religions. But it's just absolutely shocking, and that's why it's seen as such a cult, is because you're not allowed to have those outside opinions or outside thoughts. You must stay true to what they tell you to believe.
Yeah. Generally, in a religious environment, discussion and doubt, Jesus Christ himself doubted God when he was getting crucified. Doubt is filled in the Old Testament.
Doubt's natural.
Doubt is a natural reaction, questioning the nature of God. That's not unhealthy, but this group doesn't allow that. The more you think about it, the more it's so obvious, and I think a lot of people will take the fault on themselves. It was my fault, and own some personal responsibility, but at the same time also realize you were tricked. You were manipulated. If you were young, if you were, if you trusted in people who were claiming they were serving under God, that's something you should realize, that you it's not your fault that someone else abused you. It's simple as that.
Yeah, and it's natural to have that reaction of oh my God, I've been tricked, and that's terrible, and I probably did something wrong. It's my fault.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. Like,
You're a victim.
Yeah, and I know that's why it's so rough for people to come forward and talk about their experiences, because they've been traumatized by it, and
they believe they are at some point responsible for what happened to them.
Yeah. And that's why those tactics work, of making people feel like they've done something wrong, or they're the problem, or they're part of Satan's army. Whatever they want to make it seem like that they're the problem and Xenos is not the problem.
I've had a wonderful experience with Xenos, which is interesting phrasing because they've said that for a long time. But it's I'm sorry you had a bad experience. Mm-hmm. It's not about your group failed you and I'm sorry. It's you failed. Mm-hmm. I've had a great experience, so you're wrong. Yeah. Good God, like what kind of thinking is that? Hey, I was handing out a poster to someone. Guess what they said? I'm sorry you had a bad experience. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm handing out a poster that says Xenos is a cult in size 155 font, Times New Roman. It's like, I'm sorry you had a bad experience is not the logical thing you should say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That seems a little more than a bad experience.
I'm sorry you had a bad experience, man.
I'm sorry these hundreds of people have also had a bad experience.
Exactly.
It's not just these small pockets of isolated incidents.
Yeah.
Can you think of any other church in Columbus that has had propaganda posters put up about them?
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm trying to think of some of the extreme ones, like World Harvest Church, the major Pentecostal church on the east side of Columbus, which has a televised televangelist, Rod Parsley. Even that, when I went to that stuff was weird, but I didn't leave that thinking like, you know what, I need to tell somebody about this.
Yeah.
I need to make a poster.
That's what makes it so unique. And I'm sure throughout the country there's similar groups like this that run in similar ways, because they all employ the same tactics.
Yeah.
That's just how cults operate. That's how Scientology operates. And
Xenoses are just more subtle. That's just what gets people. It's like
it's a love bomb.
Yeah, the love bombing. I didn't even mention that much. Mm-hmm.
The illusionary tactic of disguising themselves as, a Christian organization.
And they believe it, too.
Yeah.
It's not like they all are there like, we know we're a cult. It's that it's like that post that I posted about the person who left Jonestown before, obviously, that tragedy.
Yeah.
She said, you don't join a cult, you join a religious movement or a political organization. Mm-hmm. And by the time you realize it's a cult, there's no safe way to leave. Because it slowly changes over time. Yeah, that's what happened with Xenos.
Yeah, and I'm sure the people at the top aren't mustache-twirling villains that are like, ha-ha, we've fooled them all, They believe...
Actually...
What the... Well, maybe. We'll get to... No, but...
What's troubling is that they know about all the abuse.
Right, but they justify it in their own way because they've spent their entire life in this.
Yeah.
And
of course they're the victim because now we're attacking the church. And it's like, I've seen posts about this related to the website and in arguments before I made the website. Members will scream over the internet at people, they'll cuss at them, they'll lose their mind essentially, and say, well, you attacked my church. It's like, that's not how you react in a conversation, is by acting like, a toddler. Like, that's not the way you go about things. And so they're the victim, of course. It's like, oh, you're attacking our church. It's like, they do that a lot. Like, when you try to leave, if you're on the edge, they'll act all, I said sad and frumpy, because it's the only way I can think of it. They're all kind of, like, defeated, and like, oh, come on, just, we love you, we care about you, just come back into the group. Like, I hate to say this.
You come back into the group, though, you're under the microscope.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The reason I had that conversation with that one person at Panera Bread was I was talking to a member, and I was like, oh, how's so-and-so from my group? And they're like, oh, good. How's so-and-so? Oh, good. How's so-and-so? Oh, she left. She's interested in the world. She cares more about partying in the world. Also, that member's still back in the group. So that's a fun fact for you. The moment you left, they started talking bad about you. And that's hard, but guess what? Mm-hmm. That's the reality of, you go down that path knowingly, it's like, it's a rough, and, people probably wonder why I'm doing this. Like, I want to state, this is the great part. I was running a website that I launched around the time, and there's a little more nuance to this that I can explain right now, but I was running a website about mental health. I had a section about mental health. Mm-hmm. I had a section about preventative health care, which is kind of weird that they were going around saying, I'm a mentally unstable guy threatening to blow up people in Xenos. When I'm running a website with a section about preventative health care, like, clearly mentally unstable. And then I was writing about video games, and because I like video game design a lot. I think that's interesting. And like, why do young men get addicted to video games? Like, biology. Like, most people don't know how dopamine circuits work, or like the limbic system. And you could really go into that with Xenos and the limbic system, and because they're so impulsive, they're so fighting for scraps, kind of a thing. And I was running this website, and one was called, the section that is Xenos as a cult was modern cults. So I was going to kind of in a subtle way say, this is how it would function, this is how they act. Eventually, for multiple reasons, some antagonistic moves by members during that time, because they were trying to twist the knife on something very disrespectful. I could lay it out in 10 minutes and everybody would, collectively lose their minds. Like, I have information that would just irritate the hell out of people, but the truth is, I realized that I'd grown a lot since I left Xenos, and one thing that I found super important was that I needed to tell the truth. Like, that's something that's we lose that a lot, and we all go to hell because of that. And I keep saying that because that's what happens when you don't tell someone the truth, or you lie knowingly, which happens in Xenos. Your life becomes absolute suffering, and I can attest to this too. And so I realized, like, I can't just have modern cults, because I know that's the wrong thing to do. Because I know Xenos is a cult, and I know that it's bad. And so what I decided to do was make the Xenos as a cult section. And then I cut that all off because other people were getting confused about the Xenos as a cult stuff linking into other stuff. So I was trying to create a conversation about mental health in America before there's a crisis. Because it really irritates me, because what happens is that we wait until there's a crisis, we all scream and bemoan, we try to ban guns, video games, and political ideologies all at once, and then a week later we forget. And it's like, that's a ridiculous way to deal with crises, especially mental health ones. It's like, we need to actually create a discussion before there's a crisis, and actually help people, in terms of mental health, identify why are you addicted to things, how does the reward circuitry in your brain work? Most people don't know that, and I don't blame them because it's complicated as hell, but I was trying to provide that information to people. And so here I am trying to create a discussion about mental health, and I'm being called mentally unstable, and they're making up bomb threats, and they're, doing all sorts of other ridiculous things. It's like, are you kidding me? It's like, what do we want? Like, it's a really important question. It's like, do you want suffering and hell? It's like, well, you can have that, but you also can have truth when you actually speak truth. Like, truth as in a peace of mind, as in you're calm, you're centered. Like, I didn't make this website because I have some unbelievable grudge about Xenos. I got wounded very bad, but at first I was angry, but then after about a couple months after leaving in like 2015, I truly, from the bottom of my heart, I pity them, because they are so into a system that does not care about them. Like, I can't feel anger at people who've been tricked. I just pity them, and I feel sad for them, and I want to help them. Also, fun fact, I made the website in a day. All this happened in a day. Like, I didn't labor, and I made the website in a day. I made the Instagram in a day, and 66 stories from shared. One day. That's all it took. And
that just shows how much is behind the floodgates.
Yes.
And how much that it's about to crack, and it has cracked.
Yeah. And they haven't had a discussion. They haven't had a discussion that was real for 30, 40 years straight. This is what happens when you don't speak truth in any situation for 40 years, is you get absolute hell like this. You have people who've died, you have people who kill themselves, you have people who've basically had failed marriages, you have people who've fallen in self-harm, you've had people whose only idea of God is a spiritually abusive, I'm gonna say narcissistic paternal figure. That's probably how a lot of people view God in Xenos, because it's just a reflection of a lot of the leaders, is that they're these very obviously ruthless people who don't care about the people at the bottom who've been hurt, and from the high school leaders up, they don't care about dealing with issues. They care about, there will be no issue. There will be no discussion. There will be no police report. It's a lie. It's a rumor. It's a myth. Very common cult tactic. Everybody else is lying. Well, that's convenient. That's
they've done nothing wrong.
Everybody else is lying.
So do people not have, would you say people don't have a personal relationship with God who are in Xenos? It's more of like the group mentality of God. I don't know if I'm phrasing that correctly.
Because that is such a complicated theological position. But I say that most people care more about their relationship with the group.
Okay. Then rather than their personal faith.
Their personal relationship is defined by what actions occur in the group.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, but that they believe is genuine and real. But then if they share that with somebody else in the group, what their personal relationship is like with Christ, they may be corrected and told that this is not actually what's happening. Yeah. This is what's happening. So it's like, yes, you can have your own. If it doesn't line up, that has to be corrected. If it's not lining up, then there's correction that happens.
Yeah.
So you are basically kind of told that this is what a personal relationship with Jesus Christ looks like. You have one,
but you're not.
This
doing
is what
it
it
right?
is. This is yeah.
An interesting thing about that too is I think a lot of Christians claim that they do have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and what's interesting about that, and this is my opinion, and I think it's rather sound of an opinion, is that generally for that claim is generally you can see that revealed through character and action. Is that, for you to claim that you have a relationship with Jesus Christ generally means not that you're gonna actually manifest that into the world, rather than constantly say, "Oh well, under grace we're forgiven." It's like somebody killed himself. Like you gotta let go of that excuse. Like somebody in your group hurt themselves. Somebody in your group left in trauma. Like we don't need grace. We need a little justice here, and we need a lot of it. It's not about grace in that instance. When people are getting seriously hurt and we're using grace as an excuse, I mean, you're torching the Christian belief system to justify abuse. Like
it's the whole thoughts and prayers thing. People would rather just bury it, bury it under the rug or throw it away, rather than address the issues head on.
What's great about the thoughts and prayers thing too is like if you're actually trying to imagine a better world through thought and prayer, generally your actions will align with that. But if you're just saying thoughts and prayers and you're not even thinking about it or praying, because if you think about something atrocious, generally you realize, oh wait, there's something I can do today that's going to alleviate that issue. What happens is that people, they don't want to, because it's hard and it's easier to virtue signal. It's easier to say, that's just what gets me. They don't have. I wouldn't go around trying to argue about the relationship of Jesus Christ. I would just say, look at your actions, because your actions reveal your character.
Yeah.
That's what's important, is that the way you work in the world is, it's just obvious after these 2 hours. If somebody who's objective listening to this would say, that's wrong. And then they would say, well, we have this, and they will say, oh, we have this radical relationship, we're a radical group, we're a radical religious group. Never heard that before. It's like we're very devoted. We commit to each other. We serve. That's all BS. Like they know that too. It's like that's like look at the actions. Like no matter how much that's a psychological profile of a narcissistic abuser. Is they'll tell you they love you, then they'll abuse you. They'll become the victim. That is classic. Just I'm angry. I can't control my emotions. I abuse you. I'll justify it because it's your fault. Like what the hell? Like that's not a religion.
Yeah. No.
That's not a belief system. That's not a radical relationship. That's not, this isn't about the culture versus Christianity. This is about Christianity constantly torching itself in terms of like, well, this isn't a Christian group. Like a lot of Christians in Ohio, they're like, that's not Christianity. That's a cult. Like that's insane. Even Christians in Ohio don't admit them being a group. And I mean, Xenos does the same thing. They'll go on they'll make fun of other churches. I've been there. They hate Young Life. They hate and hates.
Oh, I forgot about Young Life.
I thought Young Life was related.
No, I think
because I know a lot of people who went to my high school who were in Young Life who are in Xenos now.
No, they fight over each other. So they go to Xenos because it's more dedicated, it's more intense. Oh. So Xenos and Young Life don't like each other because they're similar, but Young Life's way less aggressive. So people were kind of like, oh yeah, Young Life is not dedicated as we are at Xenos.
But it's not Xenos.
It's not Xenos. Huh. That's why your friends transferred.
Well, see,
and they'll go there.
I've been wrong. I've spread false information.
Well, at least you owned it. So the
can't say that for most people.
So that's the thing, is that they will berate you if you leave. They'll make fun of the religious groups. And sometimes it's worse than others. Like I'm not saying you go to a workers meeting. It's fun for a while until you realize, why did that person make that comment about Young Life, or why did that person make that comment about so and so left? It's like,
and they probably don't even know that much about Young Life or the other religions or anything like that, because all they know is that I'm right, everything else is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the issue isn't with a moral framework either, with how to approach the world. The issue is with how's that play out. You know, it's like, generally people don't have issues with countercultural groups as long as they can function in society in a way that exists with their counterculture and actually benefits society. It's like people have issues with groups that are destructive to society, which Xenos is.
We live in a society.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No. I got you.
Thank you for affirming that. But
yes,
you know, that's
just thought I'd lighten it up a little bit. But
I'm taking my jokes, man.
Get my checks.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did nothing to defuse the bomb threat situation.
Yeah.
Pun intended. I won't throw them in there. We're gonna do jokes.
Yay, pun time.
Really blew up on them.
Hey.
I think at this point it's a good time for you to take a call to make a call to action. To let people know what, if they're listening to this and they want to make a step, what is the next thing they can do?
Of course. So I'd recommend, if you're not in Xenos, to start there. Tell your friends. It's a great conversational piece, honestly. It's really fascinating if you want to have a fun piece of conversation. So tell your friends. Warn them. If they're going to OSU or C-State or Columbus, Ohio in general, warn them. Like, just tell them. Like, send them the link. You can post the website link on your social media. You can retweet. You can share on Facebook. You can let your friends know about the Instagram page. Then I'd recommend, if you have been in Xenos, you can submit your story on the website, or you can DM me directly on Instagram, and make sure to share as much as you feel comfortable with. I don't care if there's too much details. Some people like, did I share too much? Share as much as you need to. I will edit out anything that names and compromising information. I've been collecting names at home churches because I'm seeing a lot of the same names mentioned. So you can submit names, but I will censor them out or change them for you. If you were in Xenos and you want to help more, just DM me and let me know. I can work with you there. I still need help with posters. I still could use help. Generally, the thing that helps a lot is the social media stuff. So, again, retweets, sharing, because the more people that know about it, the more people share. So share your story. The next thing I think is, if you're in Xenos, on a side note, because I feel like at least one person is going to watch this and realize they have to leave. Depending on where you are, if you're in the high school group, you can probably leave without much conflict. Just stop going, and they'll keep texting you forever, but just ignore it. I'm serious. They'll just keep texting you for a long time. They'll cut it off all at once. It's calculated. Second thing is, if you're leaving the college group, if you have family, reach out to your family. If they're not in Xenos, then reach out to your friends. Because this is my belief. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want anybody to end up in a mental hospital unless it's necessary for their health. I don't want anybody to commit suicide because of leaving. It's very hard. It's very challenging. But leaving is more important to your mental health than staying. So reach out to your friends and family. Other call to action would be just, again, keep bringing it up. When a Xenos member talks to you, mention this. When your friend goes to OSU, just let them know. Like, be a good friend. Be like, hey, you got a friend going to OSU? Like, did you hear about the call on campus? And then let them know about that. Because that could save, I'm serious, that could save their life.
Yeah, the more people that know about this, and the more it is talked about, the better off people are going to be.
Yeah, and I've been getting pretty steady web traffic and Instagram views and stuff like that, but my goal is to inform people. So, like, I don't know how long I'll do this, but I think that's the really important thing. It's like there's an event horizon people hit where they realize it, and so if they're not in it or in it, then that's what gets them out. And we just got to keep doing that. And if you know someone in Xenos, make sure to extend your hand as a friend and try to have a conversation with them, because what they need more than anything is not for you to offer some, when I irritate some Christians, like, they don't need a substitute theology, and they don't need you to tell them things. What they need you to do is for you to sit down with them and then for you to listen to them. And they're going to basically emotionally vomit all over you and say, I don't know what's going on. I just blame myself. I don't know what's left or right. And you just need to be there. You need to be there to witness that pain and to help get them out in a safe and controlled environment. Be careful with confronting members. Some are actually very unstable. They'll lie to the police. They'll do stuff like that. So just be careful. They're not going to kill anybody, hopefully, but they're not that dangerous, kind of a thing. But you have to be cautious because they will get very emotional. Because I think some people think cult and think Far Cry 5. it's not to that level. It's more subtle manipulation. So.
Right. All right. Well.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
So
Seriously,
much for
thank.
being
Yeah.
on and
Yeah.
giving us all of this relevant information and.
It was a heavy episode.
It was
Yeah.
a very heavy episode.
Mark talks for 2 hours.
It's a lot.
But
a
it
lot
was
to
very
unpack.
good. It was
Yeah.
very. What I wish I could have been able to say, but didn't have the right insight and knowledge and.
Yeah, no, it's a hard thing to stomach.
And just one more thing, guys, on the mental health side of it, since you did mention it, but not 100%. If you need help and you need to talk to somebody, reach out to us, reach out to your family, seek medical attention.
Yeah.
This is not this.
You don't have to
This
fight
is
it
not,
alone.
you don't have to fight it alone. You do not. There are people here that love you, that support you. None of this was ever your fault.
Despite what you've been told.
Yes.
Yeah.
And will be told.
Yeah, exactly, and they will probably continue to fight tooth and nail against you, against what we're talking about, and we'll fight them back. Because we're I feel passionately about this now as well. We'll probably do another follow up at some point to
Absolutely.
this. We'll keep in touch. We'll because this is important that people in this area know about this.
Yeah, I mean, Columbus, and I brought this up before, but Columbus is the 14th largest city in America as of the most recent time that I looked.
Yeah.
It's the number one growing real estate market in the U.S., I think, right now, too.
If you heard anywhere else, there's this secret cult, there's this cult operating, in Austin, Texas, or Boise, Idaho, well... Just any other large... I'm just trying to think of large cities that
a
come to
larger
mind.
city.
It's Idaho, the cult place.
It's natural to be how are they operating in a city so large? How do they have so many people aware of them, but without being
they're
aware?
still under the radar.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Like we said, everyone knows of Xenos. People are like, oh, Xenos is a cult, but they don't think anything further than that. It's just, I know that they're weird or whatever, but I don't
They don't quite understand the hugeness
the scope of it.
The scope.
And that's what I think is so important about this, and specifically what you've done here is you're allowing this to come to the surface. You're forcing people to confront an issue that's so prevalent in our city, but that no one actually looks at face to face. They know that it's there, but they don't do anything to educate themselves on it. And I'm not saying this in a bad way to them, because it's something that when you just hear it's just crazy Christians, you're like, okay, whatever. They're not hurting anyone that I know of. It's very good for us to have to face this head on and to look at this actual issue that's in our city and not just allow it to continue to remain underground like it's been.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that the reason there's been such a floodgate of it is because no one's been talking about it for 40 plus years. And so that's the important thing, just tell the truth, and work from there.
All right. Well,
Thank you for joining us.
yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Yeah. All right.
Great time.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone that's watching this too.
Thank you seriously for watching.
Spread it
us
around.
and
Share the
getting to this
website.
point.
Share the pages. Share everything.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Of course, you got to throw that out. All right. Well, thanks for watching this
So try to
very
grow the
long
channel.
episode. Oh yeah. All right.